Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Sin, and today we're going to be looking at a comparison between the Samsung Fold 3 versus the Fold 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up with a bit of a backstory for those who care. If you don't, feel free to skip ahead, but this is going to be in reference to my particular flip phone, which is also by Samsung. So this device here, this was my pride and joy. This was the ultimate device for me, but thanks to the infinite glory of like 5G man, this no longer works. And so this was essentially based on the international platform, but it always worked just fine within the United States. I think most of its services defaulted to forms of 3G, which never really meant a lot to me because I don't tend to spend a million hours on the internet or anything else that really requires internet connection while being out and about. And so with that shutdown, and the advancements in terms of this whole 5G thing, this no longer works. So just like that, this expensive phone was rendered obsolete. Ergo, our eventual transition into the Fold 3. And so the reason why I ended up deciding on this particular device is because overall it had a similar weight and ish on the form factor. So between the width and so forth, obviously it's not the same as flipping that open and using this in terms of an actual phone like I'm used to, but instead we end up having, of course, the folded screen, which initially I thought was kind of gimmicky. I thought that, I was like, oh, does it really make sense? Does it not? But honestly, it's sweet. It's kind of incredible, really. And I find myself using the open screen pretty frequently, but I also really enjoy the vertical take as opposed to the wider form factors of more modern devices. I also do have the S22 Ultra, and that one is, again, that's one I use for the camera, for some of the other features, like I like having separation of duties, so I like having my music and other things on there. But ultimately, as a phone, I couldn't imagine trying to hold something that wide. It's just too much. And so now that we've segued away from or into the Fold line, I couldn't help myself but get the Fold 4. And so there it is. We'll be adding a few additional shots in between and perhaps afterwards, but the main highlights and takeaways that I have after having both of these devices now in hand as a complete comparison, firstly and foremost, the question that's going to arise for many people is, do you need the Fold 4 if you already have the Fold 3? And the base answer, and pretty much, or really the pragmatic answer, is no, absolutely not. Unless you happen to fit into a niche category like myself. And that is too vain for his own good. So to elaborate on that, it was this striking color that initially got me interested. And this is the cream gold, or beige, that's what they call it, beige. And admittedly, it is a lot more beigey in person. It's a lot more beigey in person than what I was expecting, which I don't mind it. But the main things that I actually end up noticing after having them both in hand is look at the difference in the overall design on the outside. Here we have basically just a flat screen, Whereas this one, you know, the edge of the hinge there kind of folds over top there. And I never noticed it until having this one now as well. And so screen-wise, they're pretty much the same. This one is a little bit wider in terms of its overall look. And again, it's not quite as tall. And so it is pretty hard to distinguish that difference when you're just looking at them side by side and not in person. But once you have them both in hand, if you end up having them both in hand, then you'll really begin to notice that. One of the other main advancements that we do have within the Fold 4 is it does have an actual 2022 camera. I believe it's the same one utilized off of the S22, not the Ultra. But I don't care about that because, again, I have a different device for taking pictures and videos, etc. But if you're using just one device, like most normal people do, then having the camera upgrade, if you really enjoy taking pictures and so forth, then it might be worth consideration. Again, I don't think, even with if you're to trade it in directly through Samsung, it's a $1,000 credit. But you're still looking at a decent amount for just, again, mostly cosmetic upgrades. And to me, again, being the goofball that I am, worth it. But that's not going to be most people. The other thing I do want to touch on in terms of design, though, and this is the part that I think I really end up finding awfully fascinating that I haven't seen in any other reviews, and that is the actual edges. So these ones end up becoming on the Fold 4 a lot more, I'm going to go ahead and call it Apple-esque, where they're a little bit harder in lines. And so the design just ends up looking a lot more, again, hard and flushed across the board, which I absolutely love. That's the one credit I will give Apple with their devices, is their side profile it's beautiful. Whereas when we look at this one, again, the Fold 3, this one, it's a lot softer all around. And again, maybe the additional difference in height, you know, kind of takes away from that as well. But it's just, again, a lot more smoothed out along those edges and corners. Whereas, once again, what we end up having here, and who knows, maybe the additional component of the gloss finish as opposed to the soft matte finish ends up making that much more of a difference. But all in all, I find this to be phenomenal. So again, that's going to be kind of the short take on this. If you guys are looking for, I guess, the folded experience and what that might be like as a difference to the Fold 3, well, honestly, it's the same thing. I mean, I don't even think that the interior screen bezels end up being really different at all. So you're not really, you pretty much don't have any differences there. So summary is, if you're out for the best of the best design and it doesn't really matter, then great, go for it. And if you don't already have this particular device, it does get my full marks. I've had this one for just shy of a year, and I really haven't had any complaints whatsoever. And a lot of people will also touch on the weakness of design in terms of the interior screen. But I mean, look at this. It's kind of hard to tell within the camera here and the lighting setup I have, but I haven't a single mar whatsoever. Nothing at all. So the strength or lack thereof of the interior screen doesn't really matter unless you're throwing this into your bag or something like that with the screen folded open. Then sure, okay, you're begging for issues and scratches and so forth. But otherwise, it's great. It's a phenomenal device. Form factor's awesome, and overall in-hand feel, especially when taking phone calls, this just feels great. And it's the best thing I can ask for as a takeoff from what I'm used to. All I can do is hope that one day these are brought back to some degree. And a lot of people will mention, well, what about the Flip 4? It looks like a pretty sweet device, but I like still having some form of exterior screen. I guess I've just gotten used to that over the years that I've had this form factor. And even though you have the small notification screen there on the bottom, I don't know. I don't like the idea of, in order to use it really for anything, you have to have it folded open in full phone mode, in which case it's basically just a phone. So Anyways, that's going to be my takeaway on everything, and hopefully this review ends up being of some use to you guys out there. But I just want to get it out again in order to try and cover some of the pieces that maybe don't apply to some of the tech reviewers and offer a different, more, I guess, worldly experience. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again for the next video.